The knock came at 6:47 on a Tuesday evening, right as Nora was helping Iris practice her presentation for the tech conference. 3 sharp raps that made her stomach drop before she even knew why. When she opened the door, Blake stood there. 10 years older, grayer at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Next to him stood a woman in a sharp blazer holding a leather briefcase, her expression professional and cold. "Hello, Nora." Blake's voice was smooth, practiced. "I know this is unexpected." Nora's hand tightened on the doorknob. Her mind went blank, then flooded with 1,000 thoughts at once. She hadn't seen this man since the day he walked out. Since the day he looked at their 7-year-old daughter, still struggling to speak, still learning to navigate a world that felt too loud and too bright, and decided he couldn't do it anymore. "You need to leave." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm afraid we can't do that." The woman stepped forward, pulling papers from her briefcase. "I'm Rebecca Torres, Mr. Harrison's attorney. We're here on legal business concerning Iris Harrison. Her name is Iris Coleman now." Nora took the papers automatically, her hands shaking. "I legally changed it 5 years ago." Nevertheless, Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Harrison is Iris's biological father and maintains legal parental rights. We're filing for retroactive custody arrangements and financial compensation." The words swam on the page. Petition for parental rights. Claim to minors' earnings. Iris Coleman application speakeasy, valued at $4.7 million. "You want her money?" Nora's voice was flat now, the shock turning to something cold and hard in her chest. "I want what's rightfully mine." Blake had the audacity to look wounded. "She's my daughter. I have a right to be involved in major decisions about her future." "You left." Nora could barely get the words out. "You left her when she was 7 years old. You walked out and never looked back." "I was young. I was struggling. I made mistakes." Blake's voice took on a pleading quality that made Nora's skin crawl. "But I never stopped being her father." "Mom?" Iris appeared in the hallway behind Nora, her dark curls pulled back in a blue headband that matched her favorite blue sweater. At 17, she was tall and composed, her brown eyes taking in the scene with careful assessment. "Is everything okay?" Blake's face shifted into something that might have looked like paternal concern to someone who didn't know better. "Iris, sweetheart. You've grown so much." Iris didn't respond. She looked at the papers in Nora's hands, then at Rebecca's briefcase, then back at Blake. Her expression gave nothing away, but Nora knew her daughter. Knew the way Iris processed information, taking in every detail before responding. "You should come inside," Iris said finally. "If we're going to discuss this, we should do it properly." "Iris, we don't have to." Nora started, but Iris touched her arm gently. "It's okay, Mom. Let them say what they came to say." They sat in the living room, Blake and Rebecca on the old floral couch Nora had bought secondhand 8 years ago, Nora and Iris in the matching chairs across from them. The coffee table between them felt like a battlefield. Rebecca laid out more papers, her voice crisp and businesslike. "Mr. Harrison never relinquished his parental rights. While he acknowledges his absence during Iris's childhood, he maintains that as her legal father, he's entitled to be involved in her financial decisions. The money from the sale of the speakeasy application was negotiated and accepted while Iris was still a minor. As her parent, Mr. Harrison is entitled to compensation." "Compensation for what?" Nora's voice was ice. "For the 10 years he spent pretending she didn't exist?" "Miss Coleman, I understand this is emotional for you." Rebecca's tone was patronizing. "But the law is clear. Mr. Harrison has rights here." "I never paid child support," Blake interjected, and for a moment Nora thought he was about to show some shred of decency. "But I'm willing to waive any claims to back payment if we can come to an agreement about Iris's current assets." The audacity of it stole Nora's breath. He was acting like he was doing them a favor. Like abandoning his daughter for a decade and then showing up to rob her was somehow negotiable. "We have a lawyer," Nora said. "You'll be hearing from him." "I expected as much." Rebecca handed her a business card. "Have your attorney contact me. We'll see you in court." Blake stood, and Nora saw it then, the desperation beneath the expensive suit. The way his eyes darted to the papers, to Rebecca, anywhere but at Iris. This wasn't about reconnecting with his daughter. This was about money, pure and simple. "Iris," he said, his voice softer now. "I know I haven't been there. I know I hurt you. But I'm here now. I want to make things right." Iris stood too, her posture straight, her hands steady at her sides. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, years of speech therapy evident in every word. You left the day I broke your laptop. Blake froze. I remember it perfectly. I was 7. I didn't understand that I couldn't touch your things. I wanted to see the pictures and I dropped it. You yelled at Mom that you couldn't do this anymore. That you didn't sign up to raise a child who would never be normal. Those were your exact words. Iris tilted her head slightly, the gesture she used when she was accessing a memory with perfect clarity. Then you packed a bag. Candace was waiting in a red car outside. You left at 3:22 in the afternoon on a Saturday. It was April 14th. The color drained from Blake's face. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably, clearly not expecting this level of recall from her client's supposedly disabled daughter. I was a child then, Iris continued. I didn't understand what normal meant or why I wasn't it. But Mom stayed. She taught me that my brain works differently, not wrong. She helped me find my voice when everyone else thought I never would. And when I created Speakeasy, it was because of her. Because she showed me that being different was my strength. Nora's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. So when you talk about making things right, Iris said, still in that same calm voice, I want you to know that I remember everything. Every single day you chose not to be there. Every birthday, every hospital visit, every milestone. I remember all of it. Blake opened his mouth, closed it again. He looked at Rebecca, who gathered her papers with practiced efficiency. We'll be in touch, Rebecca said, heading for the door. After they left, Nora locked the door and leaned against it, her legs suddenly shaky. Iris came to stand beside her, and Nora pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. We're going to fight this, Nora whispered. I won't let him take anything from you. I know. Iris hugged her back, then pulled away with a small smile. Mom, it's going to be okay. How can you be so calm? Because I have a plan. Iris's smile widened slightly, a glint in her eye that Nora had never seen before. Just let him talk. Let him keep talking. That's all we need. Nora looked at her daughter, this brilliant young woman who had overcome so much, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with fear. Iris had something in mind. Something she wasn't sharing yet. Do you trust me? Iris asked. Always. Then trust me now. We're going to be fine. That night, after Iris went to bed, Nora sat at the kitchen table with the legal papers spread in front of her. She called their family lawyer, Mr. Patterson, and explained everything. His long silence after she finished made her stomach hurt. I'm not going to lie to you, Nora. This could be difficult. He never signed away his rights. The law might be on his side, at least partially. So what do? We fight. But I need you to be prepared for the possibility that we might lose. Nora hung up and put her head in her hands. Everything they'd built, everything Iris had accomplished, and this man who contributed nothing but DNA wanted to swoop in and take it. But then she remembered Iris's words. Just let him talk. Whatever her daughter had planned, Nora would trust her. They'd come this far together. They'd face this together too. The day Blake left was seared into Nora's memory with the same clarity that Iris had described. Not because of the laptop or the yelling, though she remembered those too, but because of the choice she made in the aftermath. She'd only been Iris's stepmother for 2 years when Blake walked out. They'd married quickly, too quickly probably, both of them young and thinking love could conquer logistics. Nora was 26, fresh out of graduate school with her teaching degree, full of ideas about building a family. Blake was 30, charming and confident, working in real estate development with big dreams about the future. Iris had been 5 when they married, a quiet child who lined up her toys with intense concentration and covered her ears when the world got too loud. Blake had described her as a little quirky, nothing to worry about. But as the months went on, Nora started noticing more. The way Iris rocked when she was upset. How certain textures made her cry. The fact that she rarely spoke, and when she did, the words were scripted from her favorite shows. The diagnosis came 3 months before Blake left. Autism spectrum disorder. Moderate to severe. The developmental pediatrician used words like early intervention, and intensive therapy, and long-term support needs. Blake had nodded through the appointment, his jaw tight, his hands clenched on the arms of his chair. Nora had cried that night, not from disappointment but from relief. Finally they had answers. Finally they could help Iris in the right ways. But Blake had stood at the window of their bedroom, staring out at nothing. This isn't what I signed up for, he'd said quietly. She's your daughter. I know that. His voice was sharp. Don't you think I know that? The next 3 months were a slow-motion disaster. Blake threw himself into work, staying late at the office, taking weekend trips to scout properties. Nora took Iris to speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy. She read books and joined parent support groups and learned everything she could. And Blake became a ghost in his own home. The day with the laptop, Iris had been trying to connect. She'd wanted to see photos, drawn to the bright screen and the moving images. She didn't understand about expensive equipment or personal boundaries yet. She'd reached for it with her small hands and it had slipped, crashing to the hardwood floor. Blake had exploded. Not physically but with words that cut deeper than any blow. Words about how he couldn't live like this, couldn't spend his life managing disasters, couldn't be expected to sacrifice everything for a child who would never be independent. Nora had sent Iris to her room, her heart breaking at the confusion on her stepdaughter's face. Then she turned to Blake. "Say what you really mean." "Fine." His face was red, his hands shaking. "I can't do this. I can't be the father of a disabled kid. I can't spend the rest of my life in therapy appointments and IEP meetings and dealing with meltdowns. This isn't the life I wanted." "Then what do you want?" He'd looked at her then and she'd seen it. The decision already made. "I want out. She's your daughter. And you're not her mother." The words hung between them, cruel and true. "You have no legal obligation here, Nora. When I leave you can leave too. She'll go to her biological mom, everything will work out." Nora had felt something cold settle in her chest. Iris's biological mother had given up custody when Iris was 2, disappeared into a life of addiction and instability. There was no going back there. "Where's Candace?" Nora had asked quietly. Blake's face told her everything before he spoke. Candace from his office, the bright young assistant who laughed at all his jokes and wore short skirts and didn't come with any complicated responsibilities. "I'm leaving today," he'd said. "I'll have a lawyer contact you about the divorce. You can have the house, the savings, whatever. I just need to go." "What about Iris? What about her?" He was already moving toward their bedroom, pulling a suitcase from the closet. "She barely knows I exist anyway. It's not like she'll miss me." That was the moment Nora made her choice. "I'm keeping her." Blake had stopped, turned to look at her. "What?" "I'm keeping Iris. I'll file for full custody. You can sign over your parental rights as part of the divorce." "Nora, you don't know what you're saying. The therapy costs alone." "I'll figure it out." "You can't." He'd actually looked concerned for a moment. "You're 28 years old. You're not her biological parent. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't throw it away on this." "On what? On loving a child who needs me? On being the parent she deserves." Nora had felt absolutely certain, more certain than she'd ever been about anything. "I'm keeping her. Sign the papers or don't, but I'm not leaving her." Blake had stared at her for a long moment, something like respect flickering across his face. Then he'd shaken his head. "Your funeral." He'd packed quickly, efficiently. Iris had watched from her doorway as he carried boxes to his car. She hadn't cried, hadn't asked questions. Just watched with those careful, observant eyes that missed nothing. When Blake's car pulled away, Candace visible in the passenger seat, Iris had taken Nora's hand. "Daddy left," she'd said, her voice small and echoey, repeating words she'd heard from some show. "Yes, baby. Daddy left. You're staying?" Nora had knelt down to Iris's level, looking into those beautiful brown eyes. "I'm staying. I'm always going to stay." Iris had processed this, her face serious. Then she put her arms around Nora's neck and held on tight. The divorce papers came within a week, drawn up by some expensive lawyer Blake had hired. Nora was offered the house, which still had a mortgage. She was offered half of their minimal savings. She was offered nothing in terms of child support. But buried in the paperwork was a clause. Blake would maintain his legal parental rights. He wouldn't sign them away. His lawyer had written some carefully worded explanation about how it was better for tax purposes, how Blake wanted to maintain the option of being involved in Iris's life someday. Nora's court-appointed lawyer, a tired woman handling 100 cases, had advised her to push back. Make him terminate his rights or pay child support. You can't let him have it both ways. But Nora had been exhausted, overwhelmed, focused entirely on keeping Iris stable through the upheaval. She'd signed the papers as they were. Blake kept his legal rights and paid nothing. It had seemed like a fair trade for being free of him. Now, 10 years later, she understood what Blake's expensive lawyer had really done. He'd left a door open. A door that Blake could walk back through whenever he wanted. The first year after Blake left was the hardest. Nora had taken a teaching position at an elementary school, but the salary barely covered their expenses. She'd picked up weekend work tutoring, then evening shifts waiting tables. Iris's therapies cost more than Nora made in a month. There were nights when Nora survived on crackers and peanut butter so Iris could have proper meals. Mornings when Nora fell asleep during her planning period because she'd been up late working. Moments when she wondered if Blake had been right, if she'd bitten off more than she could chew. But then Iris started to make progress. At 8, she began using full sentences instead of scripted phrases. At 9, she made her first friend, a boy in her social skills group who shared her love of computers. At 10, she read her first chapter book cover to cover and wanted to talk about every detail. And through it all, Iris never mentioned Blake. Never asked about him, never seemed to wonder where he'd gone. It was as if she'd simply erased him from her memory, keeping only what she needed to remember. Nora had asked once, when Iris was 12 and they were having one of their long conversations about feelings and relationships, "Do you ever think about your dad?" Iris had considered the question carefully, the way she considered everything. "He left because I was too much work." "That's not true. You were never too much." "He said I would never be normal." Iris's voice was matter-of-fact, not hurt but analytical. "He was right. I'm not normal. But I don't want to be. You're perfect exactly as you are." "I know." Iris had smiled then, her rare, brilliant smile that made everything worth it. "You taught me that." Now, sitting with those legal papers in front of her, Nora thought about all those years. All those sacrifices. All those moments of doubt and exhaustion and wondering if she was doing enough. And she thought about Blake, who had contributed nothing. Who had walked away and never looked back. Until there was money involved. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Louise, who lived 3 states away but stayed in close contact. "Just saw your voicemail. What's going on?" Nora called her back, keeping her voice low so Iris wouldn't hear. Blake showed up. Louise's sharp intake of breath said everything. "After 10 years? What does he want?" "Iris's money. From the app sale. He's suing for parental rights and financial compensation." "Can he do that?" "Apparently. He never signed away his rights." "That absolute." Louise bit off whatever word she was about to use. "What are you going to do?" "Fight." "What else can I do?" "Do you need money?" "For lawyers." "I don't know yet. Maybe. Probably." Nora rubbed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. "Lou, what if we lose? What if he actually gets some of her money?" "You won't lose. No judge would side with him after what he did." But Nora had already talked to Mr. Patterson. She knew better. Family law was complicated. Biology mattered. And Blake had rights whether he deserved them or not. "Iris says she has a plan," Nora said finally. "What kind of plan?" "I don't know. She just told me to let him talk. To trust her." Louise was quiet for a moment. "You know what? I do trust her. That kid is smarter than all of us combined. If she says she has a plan, she probably does." After they hung up, Nora went to check on Iris. Her daughter was in bed but not asleep, her laptop open, the glow illuminating her face as her fingers flew across the keyboard. "What are you working on?" "Research." Iris didn't look up, her focus absolute. "Did you know that in custody cases, the court has to consider the child's best interests above everything else?" "Iris. I'm 17, Mom. In 10 months I'll be 18. The app money is in a trust that I can access then. Blake's lawyers know that. They're trying to get a claim in before I'm legally an adult." "How do you know all this?" "I've been reading law journals for the past 3 hours." Iris finally looked up, her expression serious. "And I've been making phone calls." "To who?" "People who know Blake. People he hurt." Iris closed her laptop. "Mom, you need to stop worrying. I meant what I said. I have a plan." Nora sat on the edge of Iris's bed, touching her daughter's dark curls. "You shouldn't have to deal with this. You should be worrying about college applications and prom, not fighting your father in court." "I haven't worried about prom since I was 14 and realized social dances are basically sensory nightmares." Iris's smile was wry. "And I'm already accepted to MIT with a full scholarship. I have time for this." "MIT?" Nora's eyes widened. "When did that happen?" "The acceptance letter came today. I was going to tell you at dinner before Blake showed up." Nora pulled Iris into a hug, pride and love overwhelming her. This brilliant, beautiful girl who had been written off by her own father. Who had been told she'd never be normal, never be independent. "I'm so proud of you." "I know." Iris hugged her back. "And Mom? I'm proud of you too. For staying. For choosing me when you didn't have to. I always had to. You're my daughter. Not legally. Not biologically. In every way that matters." Iris pulled back, her eyes shining. That's what's going to win this case. Not the law. Not biology. What matters? Nora wanted to believe her. But she'd seen the papers, heard Mr. Patterson's warnings. Sometimes what mattered wasn't enough. But she'd trust Iris. She'd trust her daughter, who had never let her down. Okay, Nora said. We do this your way. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise. Iris's smile was mysterious now, the look of someone holding a winning card they hadn't revealed yet. Blake thinks I'm the same scared 7-year-old he left behind. He thinks I'm still the broken child who couldn't be fixed. You were never broken. I know. But he doesn't. And that's going to be his biggest mistake. The month after Blake left, Nora had stood in the middle of their living room at 2 a.m., holding a screaming 7-year-old who couldn't explain what was wrong. Iris's face was red, tears streaming, her small body rigid with distress. Every attempt Nora made to comfort her seemed to make things worse. The noise complaints from neighbors had started a week earlier. The landlord had stopped by twice, his expression making it clear they were on thin ice. And Nora's savings account had exactly $417 in it. She'd sat down on the floor with Iris still in her arms, both of them crying now, and wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Then Iris had grabbed Nora's hand and pressed it to her own chest, pushing hard. The pressure seemed to calm her. Slowly, the screaming faded to sobs, then to hiccups, then to exhausted silence. Tight, Iris had whispered, the first word she'd said in hours. Need tight. Nora had held her then, holding on firmly the way Iris needed, and something had clicked. This was how they'd learn. Together. Trial and error and paying attention. That was 10 years ago. Now Nora could read Iris's needs like a book. Could tell the difference between an overwhelmed shutdown and sensory overload. Knew which textures Iris loved and which made her skin crawl. Understood that sometimes her daughter needed space and sometimes she needed pressure and sometimes she just needed someone to sit quietly nearby. But those first years had been brutal. The speech therapy sessions where Iris refused to talk, sitting in stubborn silence while Nora's limited insurance dollars ticked away. The occupational therapy where Iris would attempt a task once, fail, and then refuse to try again. The behavioral therapy that sometimes felt like it made things worse instead of better. And through it all, Nora working constantly. Teaching during the day, tutoring in the evenings, waiting tables on weekends. Sleeping 4 hours a night and surviving on coffee and determination. Money was always the problem. Always running out, always not quite enough. Iris's therapies cost $800 a month even with insurance. The special food she could tolerate cost twice as much as regular groceries. The noise-canceling headphones that helped her cope in public were $200. The weighted blanket that helped her sleep was another $100. Nora had learned to shop at thrift stores, to accept hand-me-downs without pride, to stretch every dollar until it begged for mercy. She'd sold her car and taken the bus. She'd canceled cable and internet, using the library's computers for everything. She'd eaten ramen and peanut butter sandwiches so Iris could have proper nutrition. Her family had helped when they could. Louise sent money for birthdays and holidays. Nora's mother, before she died 3 years ago, had contributed what she could from her social security. But mostly it was Nora figuring it out alone. The loneliness had been unexpected. Not because she missed Blake, she didn't, but because her entire social life evaporated. Friends from grad school stopped calling after she turned down too many invitations because she couldn't afford a babysitter. Colleagues at school were kind but distant, not understanding why she couldn't come to happy hours or weekend gatherings. And dating was impossible. Who wanted to date a broke single mother with a special needs child? The few times she'd tried, mentioning Iris on a first date, she'd watched men's faces close off. Seen the mental calculations they were doing about responsibility and complications. After a while she'd stopped trying. Iris was enough. Iris was everything. The turning point came when Iris was 9. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had pulled Nora aside after school. I want to talk to you about Iris and computers. Nora's heart had sunk. What did she do? Nothing bad. Quite the opposite. Mrs. Rodriguez had smiled. We have tablets in the classroom for educational games. Iris figured out how to bypass the parental controls and access the settings. She reorganized the entire interface to be more intuitive. She's 9 years old and she understands technology better than I do. I'm so sorry. I'll talk to her about following rules. No. Mrs. Rodriguez had touched Nora's arm. I'm not complaining. I'm telling you that your daughter has a gift. A real gift. Have you thought about computer classes for her? Computer classes cost money Nora didn't have. But she'd gone home and dug out an old laptop, one she'd been given by the school when they upgraded. She'd set it up for Iris with basic parental controls. Iris had broken through those controls in 40 minutes. Over the next year, Iris had taught herself to code. Starting with simple HTML, moving to CSS, then JavaScript, then Python. She'd consumed online tutorials, worked through problems with single-minded focus, created little programs and games. And she'd started talking more. Explaining her code, describing what she was building, using language in ways she'd never used it before. As if she'd finally found something that made sense to her, a way to communicate that felt natural. By the time Iris was 11, she was better with computers than anyone Nora knew. She'd built a website for Louise's small business. She'd created a database system for Nora's classroom to track student progress. She'd fixed the school's entire computer network when IT couldn't figure out what was wrong. That was when Nora realized Iris didn't need to be fixed. She needed to be supported in becoming who she already was. At 12, Iris had her first real conversation. Not scripted, not echolalic, but genuine back and forth. They'd been sitting at dinner, spaghetti with butter because Iris wouldn't eat sauce, and Iris had looked up. "Mom, why did Blake leave?" Nora had been so shocked to hear the question, asked in Iris's own words with genuine curiosity, that she'd needed a moment to respond. "He couldn't handle things being difficult." "Was I difficult?" "You were challenging sometimes. But that wasn't your fault." Iris had twirled pasta on her fork, thinking, "Did you love him?" "I thought I did. But I was wrong about what love meant." "What does it mean?" Nora had reached across the table to touch Iris's hand. "It means staying. Even when things are hard. Especially when things are hard. You stayed." "Of course I stayed. I'm your mother. You chose to be." Iris had looked up then, her brown eyes so clear and direct. "That makes it mean more." That conversation had stuck with Nora through the years that followed. Through the middle school years when Iris struggled socially but excelled academically. Through high school when she skipped 2 grades and ended up younger and smaller than her classmates. They'd built routines that worked for them. Saturday mornings at the library, both of them reading in comfortable silence. Sunday dinners with Louise via video chat. Evening walks when Iris needed to decompress. The two of them moving through their neighborhood as the sun set. Nora had never dated. Never even tried. Her mother, before she died, had worried about that. "You're only 36, Nora. You should have a life." "I have a life. I have Iris. You know what I mean. Someone for you. Romance, companionship. Maybe someday. Right now this is enough." And it had been. Watching Iris grow, watching her find her voice and her confidence and her path. That was enough for Nora. At 15, Iris had come home from her computer science class with an idea. "I want to build an app." "What kind of app?" "For communication. For people like me." Iris had been excited, her hands moving as she talked. Something that learns how you communicate and adapts. So many existing apps are rigid. They make you fit into their structure. "I want to build something that fits into yours." That sounds complicated. It is. But I can do it. Nora had no doubt she could. "What do you need from me?" "Permission to work on it. Time and space. Maybe some money for hosting servers once I get to that stage. Money I don't have a lot of." "I know. I'll keep costs minimal." Iris had worked on the app for 2 years. After school, on weekends, late into the night. She'd learned new programming languages, taught herself about AI and machine learning, corresponded with developers online who had no idea they were helping a teenager. Nora had watched her daughter pour herself into this project, barely understanding the technical details but understanding completely what it meant. This was Iris taking all her struggles with communication, all her frustrations and triumphs, and turning them into something that could help others. When the app was finally ready for beta testing, Iris had recruited volunteers from autism support groups. Parents and their nonverbal children, adults who struggled with spoken language, therapists looking for better tools. The response had been overwhelming. The app, which Iris called Speakeasy, learned from its users. It adapted to their patterns, their preferences, their unique ways of processing and expressing thoughts. It was customizable in ways no other communication app was. Within 6 months, 20,000 people were using it. Within a year, 100,000. The autism community embraced it, shared it, recommended it. Therapists started prescribing it. And then the offers started coming. Tech companies wanting to buy the app, to integrate it into their existing platforms, to hire Iris as a consultant. Nora had been terrified. Iris was only 17, still technically a child. The numbers being discussed were staggering. 6 figures, then 7 figures. They'd consulted lawyers. set up trust, made sure everything was done properly, protecting Iris's interests. When the final offer came through, $4.7 million from a major tech company that promised to keep the app accessible and affordable, Iris had been calm. This is enough to pay for my education. To pay you back for everything you've spent on me. To set us both up for the future. You don't owe me anything. I know. But I want to do this anyway. The day the money hit the trust account, Nora had cried. Not from relief, though that was part of it, but from pride. Her daughter, who had been written off as too disabled to succeed, had just earned more money than most people saw in a lifetime. That evening they'd celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Nothing fancy, just the two of them in their small apartment. We should move, Iris had said. Get a better place. We don't need better. This is home. Mom, we can afford it now. I know. But let's not change everything at once. Let's think about it. They'd ended up staying in the apartment, though Nora had finally quit her evening tutoring job. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't working multiple jobs. She could breathe. The news coverage had been modest but positive. Local papers ran stories about the teenage girl who'd created an innovative app. Tech blogs praised the design. Autism advocacy groups celebrated. And apparently Blake had been watching. 3 weeks after the money cleared, he'd shown up at their door. With his lawyer and his demands and his entitlement. Nora thought about those 10 years now, sitting in the apartment that held so many memories. All the struggles and victories. All the nights of doubt and mornings of determination. All the ways she and Iris had built a life together. Blake had no part of that. He'd contributed nothing but DNA. And now he wanted to take from the daughter he'd abandoned. But Iris had a plan. Iris, who was smarter and stronger than anyone gave her credit for. Who had learned to fight by watching Nora fight for her all these years. Nora just had to trust her. Trust the beautiful, brilliant young woman she'd raised. Trust that all those years of teaching Iris to stand up for herself would pay off now, when it mattered most. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. The way they'd faced everything for 10 years. Together. The first line of code Iris ever wrote was a simple HTML document that displayed the words, "Hello Mom," in bright green text. She'd been 9 years old, working on Nora's ancient laptop at their tiny kitchen table, and when she'd shown Nora the result, her face had been more animated than Nora had ever seen it. I told the computer what to do and it did it, Iris had said, her words tumbling out faster than usual. I can make it do anything if I learn the right language. That had been the beginning. 8 years of teaching herself, building skills, creating increasingly complex projects. By 15, Iris could code in a dozen languages. She understood frameworks and databases and APIs. She could build websites, design interfaces, solve problems that stumped professional developers. But Speakeasy was different. Speakeasy was personal. The idea had come from frustration. Iris had been trying to help a younger child in her therapy group, a 6-year-old boy named Tommy who was nonverbal and struggling with the picture exchange system his therapists were using. Tommy kept getting upset, throwing the picture cards, unable to express what he actually wanted. The system is too rigid, Iris had explained to Nora that night. It makes him choose from predetermined options. But his thoughts don't fit into those categories. He needs something that can adapt to how his brain works. Can you build something like that? Iris had considered it, her expression thoughtful. Maybe. It would need artificial intelligence. Machine learning. Something that could learn from the user instead of forcing the user to learn it. That sounds complicated. It is. But it should exist. Iris had looked at Nora with determination. If it should exist and it doesn't, then someone needs to make it. Why not me? The project had consumed her. Iris had spent 2 years building, testing, rebuilding. She'd learned about neural networks and natural language processing. She'd studied cognitive science and developmental psychology. She'd corresponded with autism researchers and communication specialists, never mentioning her age, just her ideas. The core concept was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of presenting users with fixed communication boards or predetermined phrases, Speakeasy learned from them. It watched how they tried to communicate, what patterns they used, what frustrated them. Then it adapted. For someone who typed out long, detailed explanations, the app would offer a keyboard with predictive text that learned their vocabulary. For someone who preferred images, it would create a personalized library based on what they looked at most. For someone who used a mix of both, it would present a hybrid interface. The AI didn't just respond to commands. It anticipated needs. If a user was searching for a way to express being overwhelmed, The app would learn to recognize the patterns that preceded that state and offer the words before they were actively searched for. And it was customizable in ways that existing apps weren't. Colors, layouts, sounds, everything could be adjusted for sensory needs. If bright colors were overwhelming, the whole interface could shift to soft pastels. If sounds were helpful, the app could read choices aloud. If touching the screen was difficult, it could be controlled with eye tracking or switch access. The first beta version was rough. Iris had loaded it onto an old tablet and given it to Tommy's mother with instructions. Let him use it for a week. Don't try to teach him how. Just let him explore. She checked in daily, asking questions, making notes. By the end of the week, Tommy was using the app to communicate in ways he never had before. Not just basic needs but complex thoughts. He told his mother about a dream he'd had. He explained that he didn't like the texture of his shirt. He asked when he could see his grandmother again. His mother had cried. You gave him a voice. He always had a voice, Iris had corrected gently. I just helped him express it. After that, Iris had refined the app obsessively. She'd added features based on feedback from beta testers. She'd made the interface more intuitive, the learning algorithms more sophisticated. She'd worked with speech therapists to ensure the app could integrate with existing therapy approaches. By the time Speakeasy officially launched, free in the app stores with optional premium features, it was polished and professional. Iris had been 16 years old. The response had been immediate and overwhelming. Parents downloaded it. Therapists recommended it. Autism advocacy groups shared it. Within the first week, 5,000 people were using it. The reviews poured in. Stories of nonverbal children forming their first sentences. Stories of adults who had struggled for decades finally finding a tool that worked for their brains. Stories of teachers and therapists amazed at how quickly their students adapted to it. Iris read every review, made note of every suggestion. She pushed out updates constantly, always improving, always listening to her users. You should charge for this, Nora had said, watching the numbers climb. You've put in thousands of hours. You deserve compensation. It needs to be free. Communication shouldn't be locked behind a paywall. But the server costs alone. I kept them minimal. I can cover them with the premium features. People who want extra customization can pay for it. Everyone else gets full functionality for free. That had been Iris. Brilliant and generous and absolutely certain about her principles. The media coverage started small. Local news ran a story about the teenage app developer. Then a regional tech blog picked it up. Then national outlets started calling. Iris had hated the interviews. The lights were too bright, the questions too invasive, the small talk painful. But she'd done them because she wanted people to know about Speakeasy. Wanted other families to find the tool they might need. One interview had gone viral. A podcast where the host, himself autistic, had asked Iris about her experience creating the app. You built this as an autistic person for autistic people, he'd said. How did that shape your approach? I didn't have to guess what users needed. I already knew. Iris had been more comfortable in audio format, where she didn't have to worry about eye contact or body language. I knew what it felt like to have thoughts trapped inside. To understand everything but not be able to express it in ways others accepted. I built Speakeasy for 7-year-old me. For the version of myself who desperately needed this tool. That clip had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. And with it came more users, more attention, and eventually, more offers. The first acquisition offer came when Iris was still 16. A major tech company wanted to buy Speakeasy for $800,000. Nora had nearly fainted at the number, but Iris had been calm. Their terms would let them change the pricing. Make it subscription-based. Lock features behind paywalls. Iris, that's $800,000. I know. But it would break my promises to the users. I said this would stay accessible. I meant it. She turned them down. More offers came. Some better than others. Iris evaluated each one carefully, reading through contracts with the same focus she brought to coding. Most she rejected outright. Then came the offer from TechBridge Solutions. They were a smaller company specializing in accessibility technology. Their terms were different. They wanted to buy the app but keep it free for basic features, with Iris maintaining creative input. They'd handle the server infrastructure, the ongoing development costs, the customer support. They'd pay her $4.7 million upfront and give her a percentage of any future premium feature revenue. Most importantly, they'd commit to keeping Speakeasy accessible. In writing. With penalties if they broke that promise. Iris had spent a week reviewing the contract with 3 different lawyers. She'd negotiated terms, added clauses, ensured every possible protection was in place. "Are you sure about this?" Nora had asked the night before Iris planned to accept. "You can wait. Think about it longer." "I'm sure." Iris had been sitting at her desk, her laptop displaying lines of code from some new project. "This is the right offer. They understand what the app means. And the money will give us security. Give me freedom to build other things. You've already built something incredible. This is just the beginning." Iris had smiled, that rare brilliant smile. "I have so many more ideas, Mom. So many other problems to solve." The signing had happened in a conference room downtown, Nora present as Iris's legal guardian. The TechBridge representatives had been professional and kind, treating Iris with respect rather than condescension despite her age. The CEO, a woman named Helen Chin, had shaken Iris's hand. "You've created something that's already helped thousands of people. We're honored to help it reach millions. Just keep it accessible," Iris had said. "That's all I care about. You have my word." The money had been transferred to a trust within a week. $4.7 million. More money than Nora had earned in her entire working life. More money than she could really comprehend. That night, they'd sat together in their small apartment, everything the same but everything different. "What do you want to do first?" Nora had asked. "Pay off your credit cards. They're still from when I was 7 and needed all that therapy." Nora's eyes had filled with tears. "Iris, you've sacrificed everything for me. Let me do this one small thing." "It's not small. And you don't owe me." "I know I don't owe you. But I want to." Iris had taken Nora's hand. "You gave me everything. Let me give you something back." They'd cried together then, years of stress and struggle finally releasing. All those nights Nora had wondered if they'd make it. All those times she'd stretched dollars impossibly thin. All those sacrifices that had seemed endless. It was over. They were secure. Iris was set for college and beyond. They could breathe. For 3 weeks, they'd existed in that peaceful bubble. Making plans, researching colleges, talking about the future with hope instead of anxiety. Then Blake had knocked on their door. Blake, who had contributed nothing to Iris's success. Who had walked away when she needed him most. Who had never paid a dime of child support or sent a birthday card or acknowledged her existence. Blake, who wanted half of what Iris had earned through her own brilliance and hard work. Sitting in her bedroom now, Iris pulled up a folder on her laptop. She'd labeled it simply Blake, and inside were months of research. Because the moment the money had hit the trust, Iris had known he'd come. She'd known that a man who left his autistic daughter because she was too much trouble would absolutely come back when there was money involved. So she'd prepared. She'd found Blake's business records. His bankruptcy filing from 2 years ago. His pattern of failed ventures and bad debt. She'd found court records from his divorce with Candace. She'd found complaints from business partners he'd cheated. She'd contacted people Blake had hurt. Recorded their stories. Documented his pattern of taking what he wanted and abandoning anyone who stopped being useful. And she'd been tracking his movements for the past month. The expensive suit he'd worn to their door was rented. The lawyer was being paid in installments Blake couldn't afford. He was drowning financially and saw Iris as a life raft. But he'd made one critical mistake. He thought she was still that 7-year-old child. Still nonverbal, still struggling, still easy to dismiss. He had no idea who she'd become. Iris opened another file. This one contained communications with MIT's legal department, with disability rights organizations, with autism advocacy lawyers. She had an entire network of support Blake didn't know about. People who were ready to stand with her when the time came. She opened a third file. This one was a timeline meticulously documented. Every day of Blake's absence. Every therapy session Nora had paid for. Every milestone Blake had missed. Every birthday and holiday and achievement he'd ignored. And underneath it all, recordings. Because Iris recorded everything. She always had a coping mechanism for her memory, a way to process interactions she needed to review later. She had recordings of Blake from before he left. His voice raised in frustration. His complaints about her. His cruel words about her future. She had the date and time stamp of when his car had pulled away. She had documentation of every year of his absence. Blake thought he could walk in with a lawyer and take what he wanted. He thought the law was on his side. But Iris had something better than the law. She had the truth, carefully documented and impossible to deny. She just needed to let him think he was winning. Let him feel confident enough to reveal exactly who he was. Just let him talk, she told Nora. And she meant it. Give Blake enough rope and he'd hang himself with his own words. Iris closed her laptop and looked at the acceptance letter from MIT on her bulletin board. Full scholarship. Early admission. A future bright with possibility. Blake wasn't going to take that away. He wasn't going to take anything from her ever again. She'd make sure of it. The law office of Patterson and Associates occupied the third floor of a building that had seen better decades. Worn carpet, fluorescent lights, furniture that didn't match. Mr. Patterson himself was a gentle man in his early 60s, with kind eyes behind thick glasses and a tendency to fidget with his pen. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this," he said, looking between Nora and Iris across his cluttered desk. "Blake's legal position is stronger than we'd like." Nora felt her stomach drop. Beside her, Iris sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, listening intently. "He maintained his parental rights," Mr. Patterson continued. "He never signed them away, which means legally he's still Iris's father. In cases involving minor children's earnings, parents typically have significant say over how that money is managed." "But he abandoned her," Nora protested. "For 10 years. He never paid child support." "I know. And we'll certainly argue that. But the law is complicated." Mr. Patterson pulled out a folder thick with documents. "There are precedents for absent parents claiming rights to their children's earnings. Child actors, musicians, athletes. The courts have gone both ways depending on circumstances." "What circumstances favor us?" Iris asked, her voice steady. Mr. Patterson looked at her with something like respect. "Your age is one. At 17, courts give more weight to what you want. The fact that you're the creator of the intellectual property helps. The trust structure protects some assets. And Blake's complete absence is significant." "But," Nora heard the word coming. "But he never relinquished his rights. That's the core problem. If he'd signed them away, this would be straightforward. As it stands, he has a legitimate claim to parental involvement in your financial decisions." "Involvement isn't the same as taking half her money," Nora said. "No, it's not. And we won't let him take half. But he might get something. A court might rule that he's entitled to back payments for theoretical support he could have provided. Or a percentage of the trust. Or oversight of how the money is spent until Iris turns 18. Iris leaned forward. "What's their actual argument? What does his lawyer claim he's entitled to?" Mr. Patterson pulled out the petition Blake's lawyer had filed. "They're arguing for 50% of the trust, claiming that as Iris's legal father, he should have been involved in the decision to sell the app and has a right to compensation for what they're calling lost opportunity for parental guidance." "That's absurd," Nora said flatly. "It's certainly creative. But it's not without legal basis." Mr. Patterson sighed. "Look, I believe you should win this case. Blake's abandonment is documented. His motives are transparent. But family law is unpredictable. Judges have wide discretion. And honestly," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "Rebecca Torres is very good at her job. She's expensive, which makes me wonder how Blake is paying for her." "He's paying in installments he can't afford," Iris said quietly. Both adults turned to look at her. "How do you know that?" Nora asked. "I have my sources." Iris's expression gave nothing away. "What's our strategy?" Mr. Patterson laid out several documents. "We argue abandonment. We document Nora's sole financial responsibility for your care and education. We present evidence of Blake's absence from your life. We emphasize that you created this app through your own work, with no contribution from him. Will that be enough?" "It should be. But I can't guarantee it." Mr. Patterson looked apologetic. "I need you both to understand that there's a real possibility Blake gets awarded something. Maybe not 50%, probably not even close to that. But something." Iris nodded slowly, processing. "When does this go to court?" "Preliminary hearing is in 3 weeks. That's where the judge will decide if Blake's petition has merit. If she rules in his favor, we go to a full trial. And if she rules against him? Then it's over. He can appeal, but without the preliminary hearing going his way, his case falls apart." After they left the office, Nora and Iris walked to the bus stop in silence. The afternoon was cool, clouds threatening rain. Nora felt hollowed out by the meeting, by the reality that they might actually lose. "You're worried," Iris observed. "Of course I'm worried. What if the judge sides with him? What if after everything he just gets to walk back in and take from you?" "He won't," Mr. Patterson said. "Mr. Patterson has to prepare for the worst case. That's his job." Iris adjusted the green strap of her backpack. "But he doesn't have all the information." "What information?" "My plan. The things I've been working on." Iris looked at Nora, her brown eyes serious. Mom, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I do trust you. But this is your future we're talking about. Your security. I know. And I'm protecting it. Iris took Nora's hand, a gesture she rarely made in public. I told you. Just let him talk. Let this play out. I know what I'm doing. Nora wanted to believe her. But the fear was visceral, the thought of Blake getting even $1 of Iris's money making her physically sick. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks away. In the meantime, they had to continue living their lives. Iris went to school, worked on college prep, continued her coding projects. Nora taught her classes, graded papers, tried to act normal. But Blake's presence loomed over everything. He started showing up places. Standing outside Iris's school when she left, waving like a concerned father. Sitting in the coffee shop near Nora's school, making sure she saw him. Always with a sad smile, always looking like the victim of circumstances. He's trying to look good for the court, Mr. Patterson explained when Nora called him, furious. Building a narrative that he's trying to reconnect and you're preventing it. Can we get a restraining order? Not without evidence of harassment or threat. Him being in public places isn't illegal. Blake was smarter than Nora had given him credit for. Or his lawyer was. Everything he did was calculated, designed to paint him as a father trying to make amends while the wicked stepmother kept him from his daughter. One afternoon, Blake approached Iris directly as she left school. Nora wasn't there yet, running late from a faculty meeting. By the time she arrived, Blake was crouched down to Iris's level, talking earnestly while other students streamed around them. Nora's heart stopped. She hurried over, ready to intervene, but Iris saw her and gave a tiny shake of her head. Let him talk. So Nora stayed back, close enough to hear but not interfering. I made mistakes, Iris. I know that. Blake's voice was gentle, pleading. I was young and scared and I didn't understand what you needed. But I've had 10 years to think about it, to regret it. I want a chance to know you now. Iris looked at him steadily, her expression neutral. You want a chance to know me or a chance to access my money? Blake flinched. That's not fair. Yes, the money made me realize I needed to step up. But that's not all this is about. What else is it about? You're my daughter. I created you. I have a responsibility. You created me? Iris's head tilted in that way that meant she was analyzing something. Biologically, yes. Half my DNA came from you. But you didn't create who I am. Mom did that. Mom and my therapists and my teachers and me. You weren't there for any of it. I know. And I'm sorry. Blake looked genuinely distressed, a good performance. But I'm here now. Doesn't that count for something? You're here for money. Be honest about it. I'm here for you. Blake reached out like he might touch her shoulder, then thought better of it. The money is complicated, yes. But mostly I'm here because I realized I threw away the most important thing in my life. My daughter. People were watching now, other parents and students. Blake knew it, was playing to the audience. I don't believe you, Iris said simply. That's okay. I don't expect you to believe me right away. I need to earn your trust. Blake stood up, pulling out a business card. This is my new number. If you ever want to talk, just the two of us, please call me. I'd really like to get to know you. He handed the card to Iris. She took it, looked at it, then put it in her backpack without comment. I'll see you in court, Blake said softly. And Iris? I really am proud of what you built. Speakeasy is incredible. You're incredible. Then he walked away, leaving Iris standing there. Nora rushed over immediately. Are you okay? What did he say? Nothing important. Iris started walking toward the bus stop. He's building his narrative. Playing the repentant father. It's predictable. Did he upset you? No. Iris's face was calm. He's doing exactly what I expected. What I needed him to do. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the hearing that was now 2 weeks away. Her phone buzzed. A text from Louise. How are you holding up? Not great. Scared. What if we lose? You won't lose. That man abandoned his child. No judge would side with him. Mr. Patterson thinks there's a real chance Blake gets something. Then Mr. Patterson is being overcautious. Trust Iris. She's got this. Nora wanted to. But trust didn't stop the fear. The next morning, Rebecca Torres called Mr. Patterson with a settlement offer. Blake would drop his claim to 50% if they agreed to give him 20% immediately and ongoing oversight of the trust. 20% is still nearly $1 million, Mr. Patterson explained over the phone. And oversight means he gets a say in how the money is spent. Absolutely not, Nora said immediately. I advised that would be your response. But I'm obligated to present all offers. Is there any benefit to settling? It would avoid the uncertainty of trial. But it would also reward his abandonment. Mr. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Personally, I think we should fight. But the decision is yours and Iris's. When Nora told Iris about the offer, her daughter's response was immediate and certain. No. We go to court. It's a lot of money, Iris. 20%. And he'd have control over the rest until you're 18. No, Iris repeated. This isn't about the money. It's about the principle. He doesn't get to abandon me and then profit from my success. We fight. Nora felt a surge of pride and terror in equal measure. They were going to court. They were going to face Blake and his expensive lawyer and the uncertainty of the legal system. But they were going together. And whatever happened, Nora would make sure Iris knew she'd fought for her with everything she had. The preliminary hearing was set for Monday morning at 9 o'clock. As the date approached, Nora felt the dread building. She couldn't eat, couldn't focus on work, couldn't think about anything else. Iris, meanwhile, seemed calm. She went about her routine, attended her classes, worked on her projects. The only sign of stress was the way she typed faster, her fingers flying over the keyboard with more intensity than usual. 3 days before the hearing, Iris came to Nora with a request. I need you to not ask me questions about what I'm planning. Iris? Please, Mom. I know it's hard. But I need you to trust me without knowing all the details. Can you do that? Nora looked at her daughter, this young woman who had faced so much and overcome it all. Who was stronger and smarter than anyone gave her credit for. Yes, she said finally. I can do that. Thank you. Iris hugged her, a rare gesture that Nora held on to. It's going to be okay. I promise. Nora wanted to believe her. Tried to believe her. But as Monday morning approached, all she could feel was fear. The weekend before the preliminary hearing, Nora cleaned their apartment obsessively. Scrubbing floors that were already clean, organizing closets that didn't need it, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. Iris sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, occasionally typing but mostly just staring at the screen. Whatever she was working on, she kept it private, angling the screen away whenever Nora passed. Saturday afternoon, Louise called. How are you holding up? I'm terrified, Nora admitted, phone pressed to her ear as she wiped down the kitchen counters for the third time that day. The hearing is Monday morning and I have no idea what to expect. You expect to win. That's what you expect. Lou, what if Blake actually gets money? What if the judge decides he has rights to Iris's earnings? Then you appeal. You fight harder. But it won't come to that. Louise paused. Has Iris told you anything about this plan she has? No. She asked me to trust her without knowing the details. Then trust her. That kid has never let you down. After they hung up, Nora found Iris in her bedroom, surrounded by printouts and notes. The walls were covered with what looked like a timeline, papers connected by strings of red yarn like something from a detective show. What is all this? Nora asked. Iris looked up, then around at her work. Research. Documentation. The truth. Nora moved closer, reading the papers tacked to the wall. They were dated entries, each one documenting something specific. Blake's bankruptcy filing. His divorce from Candace. Business complaints. Court records. Financial records. How did you get all this? Public records mostly. The rest came from people who were willing to talk to me. Iris stood up, gesturing to the timeline. Blake has a pattern. He finds opportunities, exploits them, then bails when things get difficult. He did it with his business partners. He did it with Candace. He did it with me. You've been investigating him. Since the moment the app money cleared. I knew he'd come back. Iris pointed to a cluster of papers on the far left. He's drowning in debt. His business failed 2 years ago. He borrowed money from people who aren't patient about repayment. He's desperate. Nora read through the documents, her horror growing. Blake owed over $100,000 to various creditors. His credit was destroyed. He'd been sued 3 times in the past year alone. This man is desperate enough to do anything, Iris continued, including using me to get out of his financial hole. Does Mr. Patterson know about this? Not yet. I'm still gathering evidence. Iris pulled out another folder. But there's more. Candace left him because he was abusive. Not physically but emotionally and financially. He controlled her money, isolated her from friends, made her dependent on him. Then when his business failed and she tried to leave, he drained their joint accounts and left her with nothing. Nora sank onto Iris's bed, overwhelmed. Where is Candace now? Struggling. She's working 2 minimum wage jobs and living with roommates. She's also sick. Some kind of chronic condition she can't afford treatment for. Iris's expression was carefully neutral. She tried to reach out to me. Sent me a Facebook message asking for help. What did you say? I blocked her. Iris met Nora's eyes. She made her choices. She knew he was married with a child when she got involved with him. She helped him abandon me. I don't owe her anything. No, you don't. Nora felt a surge of fierce pride. She helped destroy this family. She doesn't get to come back asking for help now. That's what I thought. Iris turned back to her timeline. But the important thing is documenting Blake's pattern. He's not a father trying to reconnect. He's a con artist running another con. Sunday morning, Iris asked Nora to drive her somewhere. She wouldn't say where, just gave directions to an address across town in a neighborhood Nora didn't recognize. They pulled up in front of a small office building. The sign read, Digital Forensics and Investigation Services. What are we doing here? Nora asked. Meeting someone who's been helping me. Iris got out of the car, heading for the building. Nora followed, confused and curious. Inside, a young woman greeted them. She looked to be in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and the kind of casual confidence that came from being very good at what you did. You must be Nora, she said, extending her hand. I'm Sam. Sam Rodriguez. I've been working with Iris for the past month. Working on what? Sam gestured them into a small conference room. The walls were covered with monitors displaying what looked like data analysis and communication records. Iris came to me with concerns about her father's motives, Sam explained, pulling up files on one of the monitors. I specialize in digital forensics. Finding information people think they've hidden. What did you find? Everything. Sam brought up a series of documents. Blake's financial records. His communications with his lawyer about how much money they could potentially extract. His text messages with friends discussing Iris's app and how he could exploit it. Nora read the text Sam highlighted. Blake discussing his daughter's windfall, and how he was finally going to get what I'm owed. Conversations about hiring the best lawyer he could barely afford because, this is my ticket out of debt. He never mentions wanting to reconnect with her, Nora said quietly. It's all about money. Exactly. Iris leaned forward. Sam also found communications between Blake and Rebecca Torres. They have a contingency agreement. If he wins, she gets 40% of whatever he's awarded. That's why she took the case, Nora realized. She saw a big payday. Right. And that's also why they're pushing so hard for a settlement. A guaranteed 20% beats the risk of getting nothing. Sam pulled up more files. I also found evidence that Blake has been researching Iris. Looking at her social media, her school records, anything he could find. He's been preparing for this for months. Since the news coverage of the app sale, Iris added. The moment it went public that I'd received $4.7 million, he started planning. Nora felt sick. Can we use this in court? Most of it, yes, Sam said. The financial records are public. The text messages I obtained through legal means. Everything here is admissible. Mr. Patterson needs to see this immediately, Nora said. I'm meeting with him tomorrow morning before the hearing, Iris confirmed. I wanted you to see it first, though, to understand exactly who Blake is and what we're dealing with. Nora looked at the evidence spread across the monitors. Blake's greed. His manipulation. His complete lack of care for Iris beyond what she could provide for him financially. He's not going to win, Nora said with certainty. We have proof of everything. Proof helps, Sam said carefully. But family court isn't always about proof. It's about what the judge decides is in the child's best interest. I'm not a child, Iris said quietly. I'm 17 years old. I built a company. I made my own money. And I know exactly what I want. That's our strongest argument, Sam agreed. Your age and competence. The judge will give weight to your wishes. After they left Sam's office, Nora drove them home in silence. Her mind was reeling from everything she'd seen, from the scope of Iris's preparation. When did you start planning all this? She asked finally. The day after Blake showed up at our door. I knew we'd end up in court. I wanted to be ready. You hired a private investigator. That must have cost. It did. But it was worth it. Iris looked out the window. Mom, I learned from watching you. All those years of you fighting for me, advocating for me, making sure I had what I needed. You taught me to prepare. To document. To never go into a battle without knowing exactly what I'm facing. Tears pricked Nora's eyes. I never wanted you to have to fight like this. I know, but I can't. Because you showed me how. That night, Mr. Patterson came to their apartment to review Sam's findings. He spread the documents across their kitchen table, his expression growing more focused as he read. This is good, he said finally. Very good. This shows clear financial motivation and a pattern of exploitation. Will it be enough? Nora asked. It should be. Combined with the documented abandonment and your testimony about being Iris's sole support, this paints a clear picture. He looked at Iris. You've done impressive work here. Most clients don't come this prepared. I wanted to be certain, Iris said simply. There's one more thing, Mr. Patterson said, pulling out his own folder. I did some research into Rebecca Torres. She specializes in high-stakes family cases, usually representing wealthy clients. She has a reputation for aggressive tactics and creative legal arguments. Meaning? Meaning she's going to come at us hard tomorrow. She'll try to paint Blake as a reformed man who made mistakes when he was young. She'll argue that parents shouldn't be punished forever for past errors. She'll claim that Blake has as much right to benefit from Iris's success as you do. But I'm not benefiting, Nora protested. The money is Iris's. You're the legal guardian of the trust until she turns 18. In Blake's argument, that's tantamount to control. They'll try to equate your guardianship with Blake's parental rights. That's absurd. It's creative, and it might work if we're not prepared. Mr. Patterson looked at each of them seriously. Tomorrow is critical. The preliminary hearing determines if Blake's case has enough merit to proceed to trial. If we can get it dismissed tomorrow, this ends. If not, we're looking at months of litigation. Then we end it tomorrow, Iris said with quiet confidence. Mr. Patterson gathered his papers. Get good sleep tonight. Be at the courthouse by 8:30. Dress professionally. And Iris, when the judge asks you questions, answer honestly and clearly. Don't try to be clever. Just tell the truth. After he left, Nora and Iris sat together on the couch. The apartment was quiet, the weight of tomorrow pressing down on them. Are you scared? Nora asked. No. Iris considered. Maybe a little nervous, but not scared. I know what I'm doing. I'm scared enough for both of us. Don't be. Iris leaned against Nora, a gesture of comfort. We have the truth on our side. We have documentation. We have each other. Blake has lies and greed. That's not going to win. Nora wanted to believe her. Tried to hold on to that confidence. But all she could think about was tomorrow. About standing in front of a judge and hoping the system would see the truth. Hoping that 10 years of love and sacrifice would matter more than biology and legal rights. Hoping that Blake wouldn't get away with one more con. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, the sky threatening rain. Nora had barely slept, her mind running through every possible outcome of the hearing. Beside her in the bathroom, Iris methodically brushed her teeth, her movements calm and precise. You need to eat something, Nora said as they moved to the kitchen. I'm not hungry. Iris. I know. Routine and nutrition matter. Iris pulled out bread for toast. I'll eat. They dressed carefully. Nora wore her best navy blue suit, the one she saved for parent-teacher conferences and important meetings. Iris chose a maroon dress that Nora had bought her for graduation photos, paired with sensible black flats. At 8:15 they left the apartment. The bus ride downtown felt surreal, normal people going about normal days while Nora's entire world hung in the balance. Mr. Patterson met them outside the courthouse at 8:30 exactly. He carried a briefcase bulging with documents and wore an expression of focused determination. Ready? He asked. Yes, Iris said immediately. As ready as I'll ever be, Nora added. They went through security, the metal detector beeping as Nora removed her watch and belt. Everything felt heightened, too bright and too loud. Iris moved through it all with practiced calm, her noise-canceling headphones around her neck, ready if she needed them. The courtroom was smaller than Nora expected. Wood paneling, a judge's bench at the front, tables for each party. Blake was already there with Rebecca Torres, both of them dressed expensively. Blake wore a charcoal suit that looked brand new, probably rented like the last one. Rebecca's outfit probably cost more than Nora made in a month. Blake looked up as they entered. His expression shifted into something meant to look sad and hopeful. The performance of a contrite father seeking connection with his daughter. All rise. The Honorable Judge Martha Sullivan presiding. Everyone stood as the judge entered. She was a black woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and an expression that gave nothing away. She settled into her seat and gestured for everyone to sit. "We're here for preliminary hearing in the matter of Blake Harrison versus Nora Coleman, regarding custody rights and financial compensation related to the minor child Iris Coleman. Ms. Torres, you're representing the petitioner." "Yes, Your Honor." Rebecca stood, her posture confident. "Blake Harrison is seeking recognition of his parental rights and appropriate compensation for his daughter's financial success during her minority." "And Mr. Patterson for the respondent?" "Yes, Your Honor. We're here to oppose this petition and protect Iris Coleman from exploitation by an absent parent." Judge Sullivan's expression remained neutral. "Let's start with the petitioner's argument. Ms. Torres?" Rebecca stood, moving to the center of the courtroom with practiced ease. "Your Honor, this case is about a father's rights. Blake Harrison freely admits he made mistakes. When Iris was diagnosed with autism at age 5, he struggled. He was young, overwhelmed, and he made the difficult decision to leave when Iris was 7. Difficult decision, Nora muttered under her breath. Mr. Patterson touched her arm gently, a reminder to stay quiet. "However," Rebecca continued, "Mr. Harrison never relinquished his parental rights. He remained legally Iris's father. And now, at 17, Iris has achieved remarkable success with an app sale worth $4.7 million. Mr. Harrison believes, as her legal parent, he should have been consulted about this major financial decision and is entitled to appropriate compensation." "Compensation for what, exactly?" Judge Sullivan asked. "For his parental rights and responsibilities. For the genetic contribution that may have influenced Iris's intellectual capabilities. For the opportunities he missed to guide her development." Rebecca gestured to Blake, who looked appropriately somber. "Mr. Harrison knows he can't make up for lost time. But he believes he deserves recognition and fair treatment under the law." Judge Sullivan made a note, then looked to Mr. Patterson. Response. Mr. Patterson stood, and Nora noticed his hands weren't shaking at all. He looked calm and certain. "Your Honor, this isn't about parental rights. It's about greed. Blake Harrison abandoned his 7-year-old autistic daughter because she was too much trouble. He never paid a dime of child support. He never called, never visited, never acknowledged her existence for 10 years. And the moment she achieves financial success through her own brilliant work, he shows up with a lawyer demanding money." "Strong words, Mr. Patterson," Judge Sullivan observed. "Supported by strong evidence." Mr. Patterson approached the bench with a folder. "We have documentation of Mr. Harrison's complete absence from Iris's life. We have financial records showing Nora Coleman bore all costs of raising and supporting Iris, including extensive therapy expenses. We have testimony from therapists, teachers, and family members confirming Mr. Harrison's abandonment." He placed the folder on the judge's desk. "We also have recently obtained evidence of Mr. Harrison's current financial situation, including significant debt and text messages discussing this lawsuit as a means of financial gain rather than genuine parental interest." Rebecca's expression tightened. This was clearly news to her. "Your Honor, if I may," Rebecca interjected. "Mr. Harrison's current financial situation is irrelevant to his parental rights. Every parent has the right to profit from a child they abandoned," Mr. Patterson cut in. "To claim credit for achievements they had no part in. Gentlemen, Ms. Torres, please." Judge Sullivan held up a hand. "I'll review the evidence submitted." "Mr. Patterson, you mentioned text messages?" "Yes, Your Honor. Obtained legally through digital forensics, showing Mr. Harrison discussing this lawsuit purely in financial terms with no mention of genuine interest in reconnecting with his daughter." Blake whispered urgently to Rebecca, who looked less confident now. Judge Sullivan turned her attention to Iris. "Miss Coleman, you're 17 years old, is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Iris stood, her voice clear and steady. "And you created this app yourself?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Over 2 years, working independently with online resources and collaboration from the autism community. Did your father contribute in any way?" "No, Your Honor. I haven't spoken to him since he left when I was 7 years old." "And what do you think about his claim to your earnings?" The courtroom went quiet. This was it. The moment that mattered. Iris took a breath, then spoke with perfect clarity. "Your Honor, I think biology doesn't make someone a parent. My father left because I was autistic and he couldn't handle it. He told my mother that I would never be normal and he didn't want to spend his life dealing with me. Then he walked out." Blake shifted uncomfortably, his performance cracking slightly. "Nora Coleman isn't my biological parent," Iris continued. But she stayed. She worked multiple jobs to pay for my therapy. She learned sign language so we could communicate before I developed speech. She celebrated every tiny milestone and never made me feel broken. She's my mother in every way that matters. Nora's eyes filled with tears. I created Speakeasy because of her. Because she showed me that being different was my strength. Every line of code, every feature, every decision was mine. My father contributed nothing. Not DNA because intelligence isn't genetic in that simple way. Not support because he wasn't there. Not love because he never showed it. And what do you want from this hearing? Judge Sullivan asked gently. I want my father to leave us alone. I want him to have no rights to my work or my future. And I want recognition that abandoning a disabled child doesn't entitle you to profit when that child succeeds despite you. Iris's voice didn't waver. He doesn't get to throw me away and then come back for the parts he finds valuable. The silence that followed was profound. Blake looked down at his hands. Rebecca shuffled papers, clearly recalculating her strategy. Judge Sullivan made several notes, then addressed Rebecca. Miss Torres, do you have witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Harrison would like to testify on his own behalf. Very well. Blake took the stand, his hand on the Bible as he was sworn in. He looked nervous now, the confident performance from earlier slipping. Rebecca led him through questions designed to rehabilitate his image. His youth when Iris was born. His struggles with her diagnosis. His regret over leaving. I was 27 years old, Blake said, his voice catching. I had no idea how to help an autistic child. I felt like I was failing her every day. So I made the terrible choice to leave. And I've regretted it every day since. Why didn't you reach out during the past 10 years? Rebecca asked. I thought Iris was better off without me. I thought I'd done enough damage. Blake looked toward Iris, emotion in his voice. But when I saw what she'd accomplished, I realized I'd made another mistake. My daughter is brilliant. She's amazing. And I want a chance to know her. Objection, Mr. Patterson called. The witness is testifying to current desires, not addressing his legal claim to financial compensation. Sustained, Judge Sullivan agreed. Mr. Harrison, please limit yourself to answering the specific questions asked. Blake's testimony continued, painting him as a man who had made mistakes but now wanted to make amends. Rebecca was skilled, asking questions that made him seem sympathetic. Then Mr. Patterson stood for cross-examination. Mr. Harrison, in the past 10 years, how many times did you attempt to contact Iris? None. But I explained why. 0 times. And how much child support did you pay? I didn't. The divorce agreement didn't require $0. And you're currently in significant debt, is that correct? I've had financial difficulties, yes. How much do you owe? Blake hesitated. I'm not sure of the exact. According to public records, over $120,000. Is that accurate? Approximately, yes. And you saw news coverage of Iris's app sale in August? Yes. Within days of that coverage, you contacted Rebecca Torres about filing this lawsuit, correct? I contacted her about my parental rights. Your parental rights to financial compensation. Mr. Patterson pulled out printed text messages. These are messages between you and a friend, discussing Iris's money and how you could finally get what you're owed. Do you recognize these? Blake's face went pale. I don't. Those are taken out of context. Did you write them? Yes, but. And this message where you call the lawsuit your ticket out of debt. Did you write that? Blake looked at Rebecca desperately. She stood. Objection, Your Honor. My client's private communications are being misconstrued. Overruled. Mr. Harrison, answer the question. I wrote it, Blake admitted quietly. So this lawsuit isn't about reconnecting with your daughter. It's about money. Specifically, about using your biological connection to a child you abandoned to escape your own financial problems. That's not. It's more complicated. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it seems very simple. You left a 7-year-old autistic child. You disappeared for 10 years. And the moment she achieved financial success, you showed up with a lawyer. Mr. Patterson's voice was cold. That's not parenting, Mr. Harrison. That's exploitation. Blake had no response. He sat in the witness box, his performance in ruins, the truth laid bare. After Blake stepped down, Mr. Patterson called Nora to testify. She described the 10 years of raising Iris alone. The financial struggles, the therapy appointments, the small victories and large challenges. She presented receipts, documentation, proof of every dollar she'd spent. I'm not Iris's biological mother, Nora said, her voice strong. But I'm her mother in every way that matters. I chose her. Every single day for 10 years I chose her. And I would do it all again. When it was time for Rebecca to cross-examine, she tried to suggest that Nora had benefited from being Iris's guardian. That she had access to the trust money, that she'd made decisions about the app sale that served her own interests. I have no access to Iris's money, Nora responded clearly. The trust is structured so that I can approve expenses for her education and welfare, but I can't withdraw funds for myself. And every decision about the app sale was made by Iris. I just signed the contracts because she's legally a minor. Rebecca tried a few more approaches but nothing stuck. Nora's decade of documented sacrifice was too solid to undermine. Finally, Judge Sullivan called Iris back to the stand. Miss Coleman, I've heard testimony about your father's abandonment and your mother's dedication. I've seen evidence of your own remarkable achievements. But I need to ask you directly. If the court were to grant your father some form of financial compensation or oversight of your trust, how would that affect you? Iris looked directly at the judge, her expression serious. It would teach me that abandoning people is acceptable if they become successful later. It would tell me that the person who sacrificed everything for me matters less than biology. And it would reward someone for causing harm simply because they share my DNA. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But more than that, it would violate my rights. I'm 17 years old. In 10 months I'll be an adult. I created intellectual property through my own work. The money from that work is mine. Not my father's. Not even my mother's, though she deserves it more than anyone. Mine. I built Speakeasy because I understand what it's like to be trapped inside your own mind, unable to communicate in ways others accept. I built it to help people like me. And it worked. Thousands of people use it now. People who couldn't speak before have voices because of what I created. Her voice strengthened with passion. That's not because of genetics from Blake Harrison. That's because Nora Coleman loved me enough to help me find my strengths. Because therapists worked with me patiently. Because I worked harder than most people will ever understand. None of that involved my father. He doesn't get credit for it. And he doesn't get paid for it. Judge Sullivan nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Coleman. You may step down. The judge reviewed her notes for several long minutes. The courtroom was absolutely silent, everyone waiting. Finally she looked up. I'm prepared to rule. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if the petitioner's case has sufficient merit to proceed to trial. After reviewing the evidence and hearing testimony, I find that it does not. Nora grabbed Iris's hand, hardly daring to believe it. Mr. Harrison abandoned his minor child for 10 years, Judge Sullivan continued. He provided no support, financial or otherwise. He made no attempt to maintain contact. His sudden interest in Iris's affairs corresponds exactly with her financial success, and his own testimony and private communications demonstrate that his motivation is monetary rather than parental. Blake slumped in his chair. Furthermore, Iris Coleman is 17 years old and has demonstrated remarkable maturity and capability. Her wishes regarding her own financial affairs and relationships carry significant weight in this court. She has clearly stated that she does not want her father involved in her life or her finances, and I see no legal or moral reason to override those wishes. Judge Sullivan looked directly at Blake. Mr. Harrison, you had a legal right to file this petition. But having a right to file does not mean you have a right to win. You abandoned your responsibilities as a parent. You cannot now claim the benefits of parenthood without having fulfilled any of the obligations. She signed a document with swift strokes. The petition is dismissed. Mr. Harrison will have no claim to Iris Coleman's finances. He will have no oversight of her trust. And given the evidence of his purely financial motivation, I'm issuing an order restricting him from contacting Iris directly without her expressed consent. Rebecca stood, her expression tight. Your Honor, we respectfully request. The ruling is final, Miss Torres. You may appeal if you wish, but I'm confident it will stand. Judge Sullivan looked at Iris and Nora. Miss Coleman, I want to commend you for your achievements and your eloquence. And Miss Coleman, she nodded to Nora, thank you for being the kind of parent every child deserves. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that felt like freedom. Outside the courthouse, rain had started to fall, but Nora barely felt it. She and Iris stood on the steps, Mr. Patterson beside them, all three of them slightly stunned. We won, Nora said, still not quite believing it. You won, Mr. Patterson corrected. And decisively. That was one of the strongest rulings I've seen in a case like this. Iris looked back at the courthouse doors where Blake and Rebecca were still inside, probably arguing about next steps. "He'll appeal," Iris said calmly. "He might. But he has no money and no lawyer who will work for contingency after this loss." Mr. Patterson gathered his briefcase. "This is over. Iris, your money is safe. Your future is your own." After Mr. Patterson left to file paperwork, Nora and Iris stood together in the rain. "You knew," Nora said. "You knew exactly how this would go." "I hoped. I couldn't know for sure." Iris looked up at the gray sky, letting rain fall on her face. "But I prepared. I gathered evidence. I made sure the truth was impossible to ignore." "When did you become so strong?" "I learned from you." Iris turned to Nora with a small smile. "You taught me to fight for what matters. To document everything. To never back down when I'm right." Nora pulled her daughter into a hug, both of them getting soaked, neither caring. "I'm so proud of you," Nora whispered. "I know. And I'm proud of you too." They stood there for a long moment, the rain falling around them, the weight of the past weeks finally lifting. It was over. Blake had lost. Iris's future was secure. And they had won together, exactly as they'd done everything for the past 10 years. Together. The week after the preliminary hearing, Nora kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. For Blake to file an appeal, for Rebecca Torres to find some loophole for something to go wrong. But nothing did. The ruling stood. Blake had 48 hours to file an appeal, and that deadline passed in silence. "It's really over," Mr. Patterson confirmed over the phone. "No appeal. Blake can't afford it, and Rebecca won't take the case on contingency anymore. You're in the clear." Nora had sunk into her kitchen chair, the relief so profound it was almost painful. Iris, overhearing from the living room, had simply nodded as if she'd never doubted the outcome. But there was still fallout to deal with. The local papers had covered the hearing, and while they'd been mostly sympathetic to Iris, the story had spread further than Nora expected. "Teen Genius Wins Against Absent Father's Money Grab," read one headline. "Autistic App Creator Defeats Bio Dad in Court," read another. Iris hated the attention. She started wearing her noise-canceling headphones more often, spending longer hours in her room. The scrutiny from classmates, the questions from teachers, the sudden interest from people who'd never spoken to her before, it was all too much. "I just want things to go back to normal," she said one evening, her face drawn with exhaustion. "They will," Nora promised. "People's attention spans are short. Something else will become news and everyone will forget about us." "I hope so." What Nora didn't tell Iris was that Blake had tried to contact her directly. 3 times. Text messages that started apologetic and became increasingly desperate. "I made a mistake. I should have listened to Rebecca. I'm sorry for putting you and Iris through this. Please, I need help. I owe people money I can't pay back." Nora had blocked his number after the 3rd message. Whatever Blake's problems were, they weren't her responsibility. Not anymore. But then Candace reached out. The email arrived on a Friday evening. Nora almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of her. "Dear Nora, I know I have no right to contact you. I know what Blake and I did was unforgivable. But I'm writing because I need you to understand something about what happened. When Blake and I got together, he told me his marriage was already over. He said you didn't love him anymore, that you were only staying because of Iris. He made it sound like he was trapped and miserable. I was young and stupid and I believed him. I thought I was saving him from an unhappy situation. By the time I realized he'd lied about everything, we were already living together and I'd burned all my bridges. The years with Blake were hell. He controlled everything. My money, my friends, where I could go and what I could do. When I finally tried to leave, he made sure I left with nothing. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm writing to warn you that Blake is dangerous when he's backed into a corner. He owes money to people who don't accept excuses. After he lost the court case, he became desperate. I don't know what he'll do, but please be careful. Please protect Iris. Whatever else happened, she doesn't deserve to be dragged into his mess. I'm sorry for everything. Candace." Nora read the email 3 times, her feelings complex and tangled. Pity for Candace, mixed with anger at the choices she'd made. Recognition that Blake had manipulated her, mixed with resentment that she'd helped destroy a family. But the warning worried her. Blake desperate and owing money to dangerous people. What did that mean? She forwarded the email to Mr. Patterson with a note. "Should I be concerned about this?" His response came within an hour. Hard to say. Probably just Candace being dramatic. But it wouldn't hurt to be cautious for a while. Don't open the door if Blake shows up. Keep records of any contact attempts. Call me if anything feels off. Nora showed the email to Iris that night. What do you think? She asked. Is she being genuine or is this some kind of manipulation? Iris read it carefully, her expression thoughtful. Probably both. She was manipulated by Blake, that's likely true. He has a pattern of that. But she's also trying to position herself as a victim to gain sympathy. Do we need to worry about the warning? I don't think so. Blake lost in court. He has no legal avenue to get money from us. And we've documented everything, so if he tries anything else, we have proof. Iris handed the phone back. I think Candace is projecting her own fear onto us. Still, maybe we should be careful for a while. Lock doors, pay attention to our surroundings. We always do that anyway. Iris's lips quirked in a slight smile. Being autistic means I'm hyper-aware of my environment all the time. I'll notice if something's off. A week later, it wasn't Blake who showed up. It was two men in suits who introduced themselves as debt collectors looking for Blake Harrison. He listed this address as his residence, one of them said, showing Nora paperwork. We need to speak with him about outstanding debts. He doesn't live here. He never has. Nora kept the door mostly closed, only opening it enough to talk. He's my ex-husband and we divorced 10 years ago. He listed this address on a loan application 2 months ago. Then he lied. He doesn't live here. I don't know where he lives. The men exchanged glances. If he contacts you, please have him call us. One of them handed her a business card. After they left, Nora's hands were shaking. Blake was using their address. What else was he doing? She called Mr. Patterson immediately. He advised her to document the incident and file a police report if Blake kept using her address fraudulently. This is harassment by proxy, Mr. Patterson explained. Blake knows debt collectors will come to that address. He's hoping to pressure you or Iris into giving him money to make it stop. That's not going to work. I know. But he's desperate and desperate people don't think clearly. Just keep records of everything and don't engage with him directly. More debt collectors came over the next 2 weeks. Each time, Nora explained that Blake didn't live there, gave them Mr. Patterson's number and closed the door. Each time she filed a report. Iris watched it all with a strange sort of detachment. He's imploding, she observed. Using our address was a miscalculation. It's just making him look worse. Aren't you worried? Not really. He's grasping at straws. There's nothing he can do to hurt us now. But Nora was worried. She remembered Candace's warning. Blake backed into a corner. Desperate. 2 weeks after the debt collectors started showing up, Blake appeared at Iris's school again. Not approaching her directly, just standing across the street, watching. Iris called Nora immediately. He's here. Just standing there. I'm calling the police. Nora was already grabbing her keys. The judge issued an order restricting contact. He's violating it. By the time Nora arrived at the school, police were already there. Blake was being escorted to a patrol car, his protests loud and dramatic. I just wanted to see my daughter. That's not a crime. Sir, you're violating a court order, one officer said firmly. You need to come with us. Blake saw Nora and his expression shifted into something ugly. This is your fault. You turned her against me. You took everything. I didn't take anything. You gave it up when you walked away. Nora's voice was ice. She's my daughter. No, she was your daughter. Now she's mine. Blake lunged toward her, but the officers held him back. They pushed him into the patrol car while he continued shouting. You'll regret this. Both of you. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Nora stood there, her heart pounding as the patrol car drove away. Iris came to stand beside her, her face pale but composed. Are you okay? Nora asked. Yes. Are you? Yes. Nora put her arm around Iris's shoulders. He's just making everything worse for himself. I know. Sad really. If he'd just accepted the ruling and moved on, he could have started rebuilding his life. Instead, he's destroying what's left of it. The police report from the incident resulted in Blake being charged with violating the restraining order. He spent a night in jail before being released with another, stricter order to stay away from both Nora and Iris. Mr. Patterson called with an update. He also has a court date for the fraudulent loan applications using your address. He's facing charges for that as well. What's going to happen to him? Honestly, probably nothing good. He's drowning and he keeps making it worse. Mr. Patterson sighed. Some people just can't accept that they've lost. That night, Nora and Iris sat together on the couch, the television on but neither of them really watching it. Do you feel bad for him? Nora asked. At all? Iris considered the question carefully. No. I feel bad for 7-year-old me who didn't understand why her father left. I feel bad for you who had to deal with his abandonment. But for him now? No. He made his choices. He's dealing with the consequences. He's your father. Biologically. But that doesn't create an obligation to care about his well-being. He certainly never cared about mine. Nora pulled Iris closer. You're wise beyond your years. I'm practical. There's a difference. Iris looked up at Nora. Are you okay? With all of this? The debt collectors, the school incident, everything? I'm better than okay. We won. Legally, financially, morally. Blake can throw whatever tantrums he wants, but it doesn't change the outcome. That's what I think too. Iris settled back against Nora. It's over. We just have to wait for him to accept it. 3 days later, Blake tried one final desperate move. He showed up at Nora's school during her lunch break, demanding to speak with her. The principal called security immediately and Nora stayed in her classroom, door locked, until Blake was removed from the premises. This is your last warning, Mr. Harrison, the principal said firmly as security escorted him out. If you return to this school property, we'll have you arrested for trespassing on top of everything else. That incident resulted in Blake being brought back before Judge Sullivan for violation of the restraining order. Nora and Iris attended the hearing, watching as Blake stood before the same judge who had ruled against him weeks earlier. Mr. Harrison, I gave you clear instructions, Judge Sullivan said, her tone severe. You were ordered to stay away from Iris Coleman and Nora Coleman. You've violated that order twice now. What do you have to say for yourself? Blake looked different than he had at the first hearing. Disheveled, tired, defeated. I just wanted to talk to them. To explain. You have no right to explanations. You have no right to contact. You have a legal obligation to stay away and you've repeatedly violated it. Judge Sullivan reviewed the file in front of her. I'm increasing the restrictions. You are now ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from both Nora Coleman and Iris Coleman at all times. You may not contact them directly or through third parties. You may not go to their residence, their workplaces, or Iris's school. Any further violations will result in immediate jail time. Do you understand? Yes, Blake said quietly. Do I have your word that you'll comply? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Sullivan looked skeptical but nodded. See that you do. You're dismissed. As Blake left the courtroom, he glanced back at Nora and Iris one more time. The anger was gone from his expression, replaced by something sadder. Regret maybe. Or just resignation. Nora found she didn't care which it was. Outside, spring rain was falling again. Nora and Iris stood under the courthouse overhang, watching the water come down. It really is over now, Iris said. He can't come near us. He has no legal claim. It's done. How do you feel? Relieved. Validated. Iris paused. And ready to move forward. MIT starts in 4 months. I want to focus on that. On my future. Not on him. Then that's what we'll do. Nora took Iris's hand. No more looking back. Only forward. They walked to the bus stop together, the rain soaking them both, neither caring. The weight they'd been carrying for months was finally gone. Blake was in their past. Where he belonged. Where he would stay. And their future, bright and full of possibility, stretched out ahead. 6 months passed with blessed silence. No debt collectors, no appearances at school, no contact attempts. Blake had seemingly accepted defeat and disappeared back into whatever hole he'd crawled out of. Nora stopped checking over her shoulder. Stopped expecting the next disaster. Slowly, carefully, she let herself believe it was actually over. Iris threw herself into preparing for MIT. She took online courses, worked on new coding projects, connected with other incoming students through the university forums. The app, now managed by TechBridge Solutions, continued to grow. Over 500,000 users now. Stories of lives changed flooding in daily. I got a message from a mother in Japan, Iris told Nora one evening, her face lit with quiet joy. Her son is 5 and nonverbal. He's been using Speakeasy for 3 months and yesterday he told her he loved her for the first time. She said she cried for an hour. That's beautiful. It's why I made it. Iris looked down at her laptop at the lines of code that had changed so many lives. Not for the money. For that. Louise visited in April, flying in for a long weekend. She hugged Nora fiercely at the airport. You look good, she said. Better than I've seen you in years. I feel good. We can finally breathe. Over dinner that night, Louise asked the question Nora had been expecting. What happened to Blake? Last I heard, he was violating restraining orders. He stopped, Nora said simply. The judge scared him enough, I guess. We haven't heard from him since February. Good riddance. Louise raised her glass. To that loser finally being out of your lives. But Iris was quiet, her expression thoughtful. What is it? Nora asked. I've been monitoring his social media. He's living in a different state now. Working at some warehouse. Living in a cheap apartment. Iris set down her fork. He looks miserable. You've been checking on him? Nora was surprised. Not obsessively. Just occasionally. To make sure he was actually staying away. Iris met Nora's eyes. I don't feel bad for him. But I do wonder if he ever understands what he gave up. Probably not, Louise said. Men like that never do. Later that evening, after Louise had gone to her hotel, Nora found Iris sitting on her bed with her laptop open to Blake's Facebook page. The profile picture showed an older, tired-looking man in a warehouse uniform. His posts were sparse and generic. Nothing about family, nothing about the past. Why do you keep looking? Nora asked gently. I'm not sure. Maybe because I want to understand him. Iris closed the laptop. He's my biological father. He contributed half my DNA. And he threw me away because I was different. I keep trying to understand how someone does that. Some people are just broken, sweetheart. I know. But I built a whole career on understanding how brains work, how people process information, how to help them communicate better. And I still can't understand him. Nora sat beside her daughter. Maybe that's because there's nothing to understand. Maybe he's just selfish and small and that's all there is to it. Maybe. Iris leaned against Nora. I'm glad he left, you know. In a strange way. If he'd stayed, you might not have. And I can't imagine my life without you. I can't imagine mine without you either. In May, Mr. Patterson called with news. Blake filed for bankruptcy. His wages are being garnished for the debts he owes, and he's basically living paycheck to paycheck. He's not going to bother you anymore. He can't afford to. Good, Nora said firmly. There's one more thing. Rebecca Torres filed a complaint against him for non-payment. She did work for him on contingency, expecting a payout that never came. She's suing him for her legal fees. She's suing him? Yes. She's as vindictive as they come. Won't let it go that he cost her a case she thought she could win. Mr. Patterson sounded amused. Sometimes karma is poetic. Iris graduated from high school in June. She was valedictorian, of course. Her speech was brief and brilliant, talking about difference and strength and finding your voice. When she mentioned, the person who never gave up on me, looking directly at Nora in the audience, Nora cried openly. She didn't care who saw. After the ceremony, as Nora was taking photos of Iris in her red graduation gown, Louise pulled her aside. You did it. You raised an incredible human. We did it. She raised herself, really. I just provided support. Don't diminish what you did. You gave up everything for her. I didn't give up anything that mattered. I gained everything. Nora watched Iris laughing with a few classmates who had become friends over the years. She's my whole world. I know she is. But Nora. Louise hesitated. You're only 38. Iris is going off to college. What are you going to do for yourself? I don't know yet. Breathe. Figure out who I am when I'm not in constant survival mode. Maybe date? Nora laughed. Maybe. Someday. When I'm ready. But the truth was she didn't feel incomplete. The past 10 years had been hard, yes, but they'd also been full. Rich with meaning and love and purpose. She'd raised Iris. She'd watched a struggling 7-year-old become a confident young woman. That was enough. More than enough. July brought another surprise. Helen Chin, the CEO of TechBridge Solutions, invited Nora and Iris to their headquarters in San Francisco for an award ceremony. Speakeasy has reached 1 million users, Helen explained over the phone. We want to recognize Iris's achievement. And honestly, we want to recognize you too, Nora. The support you provided was crucial to Iris's success. They flew to San Francisco, Iris's first time on a plane. She was anxious about the sensory overload but managed it with her headphones and strategic breathing exercises Nora had taught her years ago. The ceremony was small and private, just the TechBridge team and a few journalists. Helen presented Iris with a plaque and a bonus check for $100,000, additional compensation for the app's continued success. You've changed lives, Helen said, her voice warm. 1 million people can communicate better because of what you built. That's extraordinary. Then she turned to Nora. And you, Nora Coleman. You raised the genius who created this. You sacrificed and supported and believed in her when others didn't. We want to recognize that too. She handed Nora a check for $50,000. For the years of therapy and education and love that made this possible. Nora stared at the check, tears streaming down her face. I didn't do it for money. We know. But you deserve to be compensated anyway. Call it back child support from a more grateful parent than Blake Harrison. Helen smiled. You earned it. That night, Nora and Iris sat in their hotel room overlooking the San Francisco Bay. The city lights sparkled below them. $50,000, Nora said, still not quite believing it. I can pay off the house. Maybe take a real vacation. You should. You've never taken a vacation that wasn't a staycation in our apartment. Iris looked at the city below. Where would you want to go? I don't know. Maybe somewhere with you? Before you leave for MIT? I'd like that. They ended up spending 2 weeks in August traveling down the California coast. It was simple, unplanned, perfect. They stayed in cheap motels, ate at diners, walked on beaches. No schedule, no pressure, just time together. On a beach in Malibu, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, Iris spoke quietly. Thank you. For what? For staying. For choosing me. For everything. Iris turned to look at Nora. I know I don't say it enough. But I'm grateful. You don't have to thank me. You're my daughter. I know. But I want to anyway. Iris smiled. You gave me the world. I want to make sure you know that. Nora pulled her into a hug, both of them sitting in the sand as the sun disappeared into the ocean. You gave me the world too, Nora whispered. You have no idea. Late August came too quickly. Move-in day at MIT. Nora and Iris drove cross-country together, taking their time, stopping at landmarks and tourist traps. Making memories. The dorm room was small but bright, with a window overlooking the campus. Nora helped Iris unpack, setting up her computer and her weighted blanket and the few personal items she'd brought. You're going to be amazing here, Nora said, trying not to cry. I know. But I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you too. So much. They held each other for a long moment, neither wanting to let go. Call me anytime, Nora said. Literally anytime. 3 a.m, I don't care. I will. And come home for Thanksgiving? Definitely. When it was time to leave, Nora walked slowly back to her car. She sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, crying, before she could bring herself to start the engine. The drive back home was lonely. But Nora felt proud. Accomplished. She'd done it. She'd raised Iris, helped her thrive, and now watched her fly. Back in their apartment, now empty of Iris's constant presence, Nora sat at the kitchen table. She looked around at the small space that had held so much life, so much struggle and triumph. Her phone buzzed. A text from Iris. Met my roommate. She's nice. Also autistic. We're going to get along. Nora smiled, texting back. That's wonderful. Love you. Love you too, Mom. Mom. Iris called her mom now, naturally and without prompting. Not Nora. Not my guardian. Mom. That's all Nora had ever wanted. Another text came through. This one from an unknown number. Hi. My name is Grant. I'm a teacher at Riverside Elementary, new this year. I was told you're the one to talk to about curriculum questions. Coffee sometime? Nora stared at the message. A colleague. Friendly, professional. Normal. She'd spent 10 years in survival mode. Maybe it was time to live instead. Sure, she texted back. Coffee sounds good. That evening, Nora sat on her balcony watching the sun set. She thought about Blake, probably in his warehouse somewhere, living with the consequences of his choices. She thought about Iris, brilliant and strong, starting her college journey. She thought about herself, finally able to breathe. Justice had been served. Not just in the courtroom but in life. Blake had nothing. Iris had everything. And Nora had the satisfaction of knowing she'd made the right choice 10 years ago. She'd stayed. She'd loved. She'd won. And now, finally, she could rest. September arrived with crisp air and changing leaves. Nora woke up in her apartment, the silence strange after so many years of Iris's presence. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table and checked her phone. 3 messages from Iris, sent throughout the previous evening as she'd settled into her first day of classes. Photos of the campus, excited observations about her professors, a funny story about getting lost on the way to the computer science building. Nora smiled, texting back, sounds like you're having a great time. Proud of you. The response came immediately, thank you. How are you doing? Good. Really good. And she was. After years of constant worry, constant struggle, she was sleeping through the night, eating proper meals, breathing. The meeting with Grant for coffee had turned into 3 meetings. He was funny and kind, a second-grade teacher who loved his job and treated his students with genuine respect. He asked about Nora's life, listened when she talked, didn't run when she mentioned raising a special needs child alone. "That's incredible," he'd said simply. "You must be an amazing person." "I'm just a person who loved her daughter." "That's what makes you amazing." They weren't dating, not exactly. But they were becoming friends. It was nice to have adult conversation that wasn't about therapy schedules or IEPs. Nice to laugh without guilt. Nice to remember who she'd been before survival became her entire identity. In October, Iris came home for a long weekend. She burst through the apartment door, her face lit with excitement. "I have so much to tell you." They spent the weekend catching up. Iris talked about her classes, her research project, the autism student group she joined. She seemed lighter, happier, more herself than ever. "I found my people," she said simply. "Other autistic students who just get it. We don't have to explain ourselves or mask. We can just be." "That's wonderful." "And Mom, I'm working on something new. Another app." Iris pulled out her laptop, showing Nora preliminary designs. "This one is for task management and executive function. To help people with ADHD, autism, anyone who struggles with organization. You're going to change more lives." "I hope so. That's the plan." On Sunday evening, as Nora was driving Iris back to the bus station, her daughter brought up Blake. "I looked him up again. He's still in that warehouse job. Still living alone. Still posting nothing interesting on social media." "Why do you keep checking?" "I don't know anymore. Maybe just to confirm he's actually leaving us alone." Iris looked out the window. "Do you ever think about him? Wonder how he's doing?" "No," Nora said honestly. "He made his choices. He's living with them. That's not my responsibility." "Do you think he regrets it? Leaving us?" "I think he regrets losing the money. I don't think he regrets losing us." Nora glanced at Iris. "Does it bother you that he doesn't care?" "It used to. When I was younger, I thought if I was just good enough, smart enough, normal enough, he'd come back." Iris's voice was steady, thoughtful. "But I'm not 7 anymore. I understand now that his leaving had nothing to do with me and everything to do with him. He was too weak to be a parent. That's his failing, not mine." "You're incredibly wise. I just have perspective now. And honestly, I'm grateful he left. If he'd stayed, he would have made both our lives miserable. You would have spent years trying to make him happy while he resented me. This way we got to build something good together." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you so much." "I love you too." Iris smiled. "And Mom? I think you should date Grant. He seems nice." Nora laughed through her tears. "How do you know about Grant?" "You mention him in half your texts. Grant said something funny today. Grant recommended a good book. It's obvious you like him. We're just friends. Friends can become more. If you want them to." Iris reached over and squeezed Nora's hand. "You deserve to be happy. To have a life that's not just about me. My life has always been about you. That's not a bad thing." "I know. But I'm not 7 anymore. I'm in college. I'm independent. You can have a life now." Nora drove in silence for a moment, considering. "I'll think about it." "Good." November brought Thanksgiving. Iris came home for the full week, bringing her roommate, Zara, who didn't have family nearby. The 3 of them cooked together, Nora teaching both girls how to make her mother's stuffing recipe. Grant came for Thanksgiving dinner. He and Iris hit it off immediately, bonding over terrible jokes and a shared love of science fiction. Zara was shy but warm, gradually opening up as the evening went on. After dinner, while Zara and Grant were doing dishes, Iris pulled Nora aside. "I like him. He's good for you. We're taking it slow." "I know. But Mom, you look happy. Really happy. That's all I ever wanted for you." That night, after everyone had left, Nora sat with Grant on her balcony. The November air was cold but not unbearable. "Your daughter is remarkable," Grant said. "You did an incredible job raising her." "Thank you. She's the best thing I ever did." "Can I ask you something?" Grant turned to look at her. "How did you do it? Single parent, special needs child, working multiple jobs. How did you not break?" "I almost did. Many times." Nora thought about those early years, the exhaustion and fear. "But Iris needed me. That was enough to keep going." "You're an amazing woman, Nora Coleman." "I'm just a woman who loved her child. That's what makes you amazing." Grant reached over and took her hand. I'd really like to take you on an actual date. Not just coffee. A real date. Nora looked at their joined hands, feeling something flutter in her chest that she hadn't felt in over a decade. Oh, possibility. The chance at something new. I'd like that too. December came fast. Finals week for Iris, winter break approaching. Nora prepared the apartment, buying Iris's favorite foods, setting up the guest bed for when Zara would visit for a few days. Grant helped her put up a Christmas tree, the first one she'd had in years. They strung lights and hung ornaments, his steady presence making everything feel easier. So we're actually dating now? Nora asked as they worked. I believe we are. Unless you have objections? No objections. Nora smiled. Just wanted clarification. I like clarity. It's one of my better qualities. Grant stepped back to admire their work. What are your other deal breakers? I should know up front. Deal breakers. Things that would make you end this before it really starts. Nora considered. Anyone who's mean to Iris. Anyone who wants me to choose between them and her. Anyone who doesn't understand that she's always going to be my priority. Of course she is. She's your daughter. Grant said it like it was obvious. I wouldn't want to date someone who didn't prioritize their kid. That would be a red flag. You say that now. I mean it now and I'll mean it later. Grant turned to face her fully. Nora, I know what I'm getting into. You're a package deal with Iris. That doesn't scare me. If anything, it makes me respect you more. Nora felt something loosen in her chest. A fear she'd been carrying that maybe she'd never find someone who understood. That maybe she'd have to choose. Thank you, she whispered. Nothing to thank me for. It's just the truth. Iris came home December 18th, bursting through the door with her usual energy. She took one look at the Christmas tree, then at Grant sitting comfortably on the couch and grinned. So it's official? It's official, Nora confirmed. Good. I approve. Iris dropped her bags and hugged Grant. But just so we're clear, if you hurt her, I will destroy you. I created an app worth millions. I can definitely ruin your life digitally. Grant laughed. Fair enough. I'll be on my best behavior. Christmas was quiet and perfect. Just the four of them, Nora and Iris, Grant and Zara. They exchanged small gifts, ate too much food, watched movies. Nora gave Iris a new laptop, top of the line, perfect for her coding work. Iris gave Nora a framed photo of the two of them from the California trip, both smiling on that beach at sunset. So we never forget, Iris said softly. I could never forget. That night, after Zara and Grant had left, Nora and Iris sat together on the couch like they used to when Iris was small. This is a good life we've built, Iris said quietly. The best life. I was thinking about Blake earlier. How different things would be if he'd stayed. You'd probably be miserable. I'd probably be divorced anyway. Exactly. But more than that, I don't think I would have become who I am. Iris looked at Nora. The struggle, the challenges, learning to cope with being different. All of that made me strong. Made me creative. Made me build Speakeasy. You don't owe your success to his abandonment. No. But I owe my resilience to it. And I owe everything else to you. Iris took Nora's hand. You could have left too. You could have decided it was too hard. But you didn't. And that changed everything. I never wanted to leave. I know. And I'm so grateful you didn't. New Year's Eve arrived. Nora and Grant went to a quiet dinner, leaving Iris and Zara at the apartment for a girls' night. At midnight, as fireworks lit up the sky outside the restaurant window, Grant kissed Nora for the first time. Happy New Year, he whispered. Happy New Year, she whispered back. Was a new year. A new decade of her life. And for the first time in as long as she could remember, Nora wasn't afraid of what came next. She had Iris, thriving and independent. She had Grant, kind and steady. She had herself, finally free from the constant survival mode she'd lived in for so long. In January, Iris went back to school. She called Nora one evening, excited about something. I got contacted by a documentary filmmaker. They want to do a short film about Speakeasy and its impact. Would you be willing to be interviewed? Me? Why? Because you're part of the story. The support that made it possible. Iris paused. I told them I'd only do it if you were comfortable with it. Nora thought about it. About the years of struggle, about Blake's abandonment, about everything they'd overcome. Yes, she said finally. I'll do it. The documentary filmed over 2 months. Interviews with Iris, with Nora, with users of Speakeasy, with therapists and educators. They even interviewed Helen Chen from TechBridge Solutions. But they didn't interview Blake. Iris had been firm about that. He gets no part of this story. He contributed nothing. He doesn't get to be included in our success. The documentary, called Finding Voice, premiered at a film festival in March. Nora and Iris attended together, Grant coming along for support. Watching their story on screen was surreal. Seeing Iris talk about her journey from a nonverbal 7-year-old to a successful app developer. Seeing herself talk about the decision to stay, to raise Iris alone, to fight for her at every turn. There was a moment in the film where the interviewer asked Nora if she regretted it. Raising Iris alone, giving up so much of her own life. On screen, Nora's face was certain. I've never regretted it for a single second. Iris is the greatest gift of my life. Raising her has been an honor. In the theater, real-time, Nora felt Iris grab her hand and squeeze. The documentary won awards. Got featured on streaming platforms. Reached millions of people. And with it came more attention for Speakeasy. More users, more impact, more lives changed. TechBridge Solutions called in April with an update. We want to make a version of Speakeasy for use in schools. Free for all public school systems. We think Iris should consult on the development. Iris, now deep into her second semester at MIT, took on the consulting role. She worked remotely, balancing it with her coursework, thriving under the pressure. This is what I'm meant to do, she told Nora during one of their weekly video calls. Build things that help people. Solve problems that matter. You're going to change the world. I'm already changing it. One app at a time. May brought Iris home for summer break. She decided to stay in their city for the summer, taking an internship at a local tech company and living at home to save money. Is that okay? She asked Nora. I know you and Grant probably want privacy. Are you kidding? Having you home is wonderful. Nora hugged her. Grant can wait. You're always welcome here. The summer was peaceful. Iris worked during the day, came home to dinner with Nora and often Grant. They fell into easy routines, movie nights and weekend trips, the three of them becoming a kind of family. In July, Grant proposed. Not to Nora, not yet. But to become a more permanent part of their lives. I'm not trying to replace anyone, he said carefully, talking to both Nora and Iris together. But I love your mom. And I care about you. I'd like to be part of this family if you'll have me. Iris looked at him thoughtfully. You make mom happy. That's what matters most to me. She paused. But also you're kind and you're smart and you understand our dynamic. So yes, I'm okay with it. Thank you, Grant said, clearly relieved. A week later he proposed to Nora properly. On that same balcony where they'd had so many conversations, with a simple ring and simpler words. I love you. I love Iris. I want to build a life with both of you. Will you marry me? Yes, Nora said without hesitation. Yes. They planned a small wedding for September, just family and close friends. Iris would be maid of honor. Louise would fly in. It would be simple and perfect. August brought one final surprise. A letter arrived, forwarded through Mr. Patterson's office. The return address was from the state where Blake now lived. Nora opened it carefully, Iris reading over her shoulder. Dear Nora and Iris. I'm writing this because my therapist says I need to take accountability for my actions. I don't expect forgiveness and I'm not asking for anything. I was a terrible father and a worse person. I abandoned Iris because I was too weak and selfish to deal with her disability. I came back when she had money because I was desperate and stupid. I hurt both of you in ways I'm only now beginning to understand. Iris, you're an incredible young woman. I saw the documentary. I watched you talk about your journey and your success, and I realized I gave up the greatest thing I'll ever have the chance to be part of. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm proud of who you've become. Even though I had nothing to do with it. Nora, you were the parent I should have been. You stayed when I left. You loved Iris when I couldn't. You built a life for her that I never could have provided. Thank you for that. Thank you for being everything I wasn't. I won't contact you again. This is goodbye. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And I'm sorry. Blake. Nora read the letter twice, her emotions complicated. Anger, yes. But also something like pity. And a sense of finality. What do you think? She asked Iris. Iris was quiet for a long moment. I think he's probably genuine. Therapy can do that, make you face yourself. She folded the letter carefully. But I also think it doesn't change anything. He's sorry now, but that doesn't undo the damage. Do you want to respond? No. He said it himself. This is goodbye. Iris looked at Nora. We don't owe him closure or forgiveness. We owe him nothing. Are you sure? I'm sure. Iris smiled slightly. He's part of my past. But you're my present and my future. That's what matters. Nora filed the letter away in a folder she'd probably never look at again. Blake's apology didn't erase his abandonment, but it did provide something. An ending. The wedding in September was everything Nora had hoped for. Small and intimate, held in a garden with late summer flowers blooming. Iris gave a speech that made everyone cry, talking about love and family and what those words really meant. Blood doesn't make family, she said, her voice clear and certain. Choice does. Nora chose me when she didn't have to. Grant chose us when it would have been easier not to. That's what family is. People who choose to stay. After the ceremony, as Nora danced with Grant, she caught sight of Iris laughing with Louise. Her daughter, beautiful in her blue bridesmaid dress, her face lit with genuine happiness. This was what Nora had fought for. This moment. This life. This family they built together through struggle and love and determination. Grant pulled her close. What are you thinking about? How lucky I am. I'm the lucky one. I got both of you. We're all lucky. That night, after the reception had ended and Grant had gone home to pack for their brief honeymoon, Nora and Iris sat together one last time before Nora's life officially changed. How do you feel? Iris asked. About everything? Happy. Complete. Like everything we went through was worth it. Nora looked at her daughter. Thank you for letting me be your mother. Thank you for choosing to be. Iris leaned her head on Nora's shoulder. We did good, didn't we? Built something worth having? We did great. What do you think about Blake's letter? Really? Nora considered. I think he finally understands what he lost. But understanding doesn't change the past. It doesn't earn him a place in our future. That's what I think too. Iris was quiet for a moment. I don't hate him anymore. I just, nothing him. He's a stranger who happened to provide DNA. That's all. That's healthy. I learned from the best. Iris sat up, looking at Nora seriously. I know I don't say this enough, but everything I am, everything I've accomplished, it's because of you. You gave me the foundation to build from. The support to try. The love to believe I could. You did the work yourself. With your help. Always with your help. Iris smiled. I'm going to make you proud, Mom. I'm going to keep building things that matter. Keep changing lives. Keep proving that different doesn't mean less. You already make me proud. Every single day. They sat together in comfortable silence, the way they'd done for 10 years. Mother and daughter. Not by biology but by choice. By love. By staying. Nora thought about the journey that had led here. From Blake's abandonment to court battles to this moment of peace. Every hardship, every struggle, every moment of doubt. All of it had led to this. To Iris thriving. To Nora finding love again. To a family built not on obligation but on choice. Blake had left thinking Iris would fail. Thinking Nora would give up. Thinking they'd both prove him right about disability being too hard, too much. Instead, they proved that love was enough. That determination mattered. That choosing to stay, choosing to fight, choosing each other, that was what built real family. And they'd won. Completely, absolutely won. Not just in court. In life. That was the sweetest victory of all.